All right, thanks worship team, doing a great job this morning. Appreciate all you do. I did need to start off just a little kind of announcement or whatever before we actually get into the message today. I received more messages of condolence this week than at any other week of my life, and I'm not exaggerating. So for all of you who reached out after the passing of Hulk Hogan, I appreciate you. You all were asking if I was okay. I'm doing well. I'm still going through the seasons of grief, but I am getting through it. So thank you for reaching out. And there was a great debate in my household on what I should do, because he was such an integral part of my childhood and got to meet him last year and things that go with it. So we're going to hold off on that for a couple of weeks. So we'll do a proper send-off in a couple of weeks. So just make sure you keep coming back, because I'm not going to tell you when it is. But in the next couple of weeks, there's actually an appropriate message that's going to tie right in, and we'll kind of reflect on the life legacy of Hulk Hogan and the things that go with that. So I'm not promising I'll rip off my shirt like he does, but you never know. So just be here. Let's see what happens in a couple of weeks. So, but I'm not exaggerating. I received more people reaching out to make sure I was okay than I was. I'm like, maybe I've talked about him too much. I don't know. Like, it's kind of scary, the kind of impact you can make talking about a celebrity so much. But, oh, well, let's get into it today. It is time to celebrate Christmas. There was once a mother who was getting ready for the large Christmas gathering of the year. Everybody was expected to be there, aunts and uncles and cousins and grandkids, and she was barking out orders like a drill sergeant. Pick up your shoes. Why are they always by the front door? Clothes all over the house. Why is the bathroom not clean? Toys all over the place. And bam, 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 the kids were just being sent around like crazy, scurrying, trying to get all the work done. Finally, about an hour before the party was to start, things had settled down, everything had been picked up, and everybody was kind of left to do their own thing. So the youngest in the house was 4 years old, and she decided to play in the living room by the tree with the wooden nativity set. The mom finally had a moment to breathe, and she glanced in and thought, oh, how sweet. And she's watching her 4-year-old play. And then she listened to what was going on in the scene. And the 4-year-old had taken Joseph to the door, and Joseph was greeting the wise men. How sweet. And he said, I don't care how far you've come, you're not bringing those camels into my house. And she's like, uh-oh. And then, I don't care if you brought a chest of gold, did you sanitize it? Do you know who's going to be touching that? And, it just fell apart from there. And she realized, maybe I have passed the wrong spirit of the season on to my kids. And that's the reality of Christmas. Christmas can get hectic. It can get stressful. There can be so many commitments that we lose sight of what's really important. It goes from the most wonderful time of the year to it's the most wonderful when it's over. And then we're depressed that it's over, and we wonder why. Like, we just live in this constant contradiction in the season of Christmas. Now, Christmas truly is a special season, and I love celebrating it in July. I don't think we've done that here since 2022, so it's been a few years since we've done this proper. And the reason I like celebrating it in July is the expectations are so low. The commitments are so low. Most of you aren't going to go out and have a Christmas party, though we might be doing that at our house. You may not be doing a gift exchange. You may not be doing the elaborate setup, but the expectations are so minor. The commitments are not there. We just get to enjoy the moment. We get to be present. And that's the message I want to talk about today, being present. This is maybe the greatest challenge in our world today, learning to just show up and be wherever you are. So I want to read some stats here that kind of surprise me, but don't surprise me. I think you'll agree with me on some of these. As of this year, so the year 2025, the most recent stat says 98% of American adults own a cell phone. 98%. That's no surprise, I think. Most people have cut the cord and live with cell phones only now, so we definitely see a huge change in how we use our phones. But 70% of adults have anxiety when their phone percent drops below 20%. Think about it. They're playing on their cell phone, working, making calls. They see that 20%. You get that red icon on the iPhone. I don't know if Android does it. And all of a sudden you're like, panic attack. And people are literally stressing out when their phone drops below 20%. The average phone user during the day uses their phone 5 hours a day. Now, you might say, well, you might be streaming music in the background. True. Like, there's a lot of ways you can parse out 5 hours, but understand it's a high-use item. The average number of times you touch your phone screen in a day. I had to double-check this one. I looked at a couple different sites to see if it was true. Apparently it is 2,600 times a day. So I guess every time you swipe it counts as a touch. But I mean, 2,600 times. Holy cow, we're touching our screens a lot. How often are you washing your hands? How often are you sanitizing that screen? Probably not as often as you should. So maybe when you leave here today, you should do that first thing when you get home. Also found out, according to the insurance companies, 26% of all auto accidents involve a cell phone. Some misuse of a cell phone, looking down, glancing away, whatever the reason. So 25%, 26% of all auto accidents are directly tied to being distracted by our devices. So those stats don't surprise me, but they also don't make me very encouraged. It's pretty discouraging in a lot of ways. And there's one more. It said half of the time teens spend together is in silence while they're on their phones. And we've definitely seen that play out in a number of times in a number of settings. So the reality is adults, teens, kids, we all struggle to be present wherever we are. And I bet there's a lot of people who go to church every Sunday that don't get through the entire hour-long service without at least checking a notification, without at least looking at something that popped up, or wondering, did somebody text me? Now, to be fair, when we open our Bibles, and we will here soon, many of you get out your phone. Oftentimes, I read my Bible on my phone, so I do understand that. So, we're looking at our Bible, but when we go to open the app, a message popped up. And all of a sudden, we're distracted for 5 seconds, 10 seconds. We miss a few key words, maybe, of what's going on, and then we try to plug back in. We leave church, and we wonder why we weren't quite as connected as we would have liked to have been. Maybe perhaps we were just distracted too much by our phone. Or as soon as you get out of church, maybe you didn't check it all service. As soon as you get to your car, first thing you do, I got to see if I got any messages before I take off. Well, I can understand why you would do that, but it's a sign of what's called addiction. People used to complain, a person can't get through work without having 3 smoke breaks. Yeah, you can't get through work without 25 cell phone breaks. What's the difference? It's the same type of addiction. It has the same chemical reaction in the brain. It's the same type of emotional attachment problems that associate with all addictions. Now, I know I've been distracted by my phone way too often. And I got to be more intentional about setting it down and choosing to be present wherever I am, and probably you are too. So this Christmas in July, let me encourage you or challenge you to be present. Show up with presence. Not the gifts wrapped under a tree, but your body being present, your mind being engaged with the people around you, actually connecting with those around you. One of my favorite quotes, I don't know whose it is, I read it on a poster when I was in college, wherever you are, be all there. Choose to be present this Christmas in July, and you'll have a reason to celebrate and to be excited. Be there. And that's really what God chose to do that first Christmas. It was in Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14. Looking forward to 700 years later when Jesus would arrive, it says, "Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. The virgin will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Emmanuel." Emmanuel means God with us. God was going to send his son to be present with us. Could you imagine the crowd gathers? They're ready to hear words of wisdom. And Jesus says, just a minute. I got to beat the next level of Candy Crush. Just a minute. I got to respond to this text message. My mom, she wants to know what time I'm going to be there for dinner. Really? That would be absolutely absurd. Jesus knew the value of being present. God knew the value of sending someone who was going to be engaged in the world around him and not be distracted. So let us follow that example this Christmas in July. God means to be with us. He chooses to be with us. He chooses to be present. That's why he hears our prayers. That's why he responds to our prayers, because he actually hears them. He knows what's going on. The Holy Spirit's interceding for us. There's power in the name of Jesus. It all connects together. How desperately we need this message of Christmas today. We all need to do our part in being present. Now, why are we so addicted to our phones? Why are we so easily distracted? Why can't we finish a prayer without our mind wandering away to something completely unrelated, and it takes us forever to pull it back in? Well, one reason is we convince ourselves it's really no big deal. Well, everybody's got a phone. Everybody glances down. It's not that big a deal. And I looked up some more stats because I was curious. If you add up all the time people spend on their cell phones on an average daily basis, and you put it throughout their life, the average person will spend 10 years of their life on a screen. 10 years. The average person lives to be about 80. Men a little bit less, women a little bit more, averages out to 80. So here we are, we're spending a huge percentage of our life looking at a screen. If you want to put it in an hour perspective, 76,000 hours looking at screens, looking at something that's not present with you. That's the irony. Your phone disengages you from where you are and takes you somewhere else. Now, I do understand there are many jobs that require screens. In fact, my job requires a great deal of screen usage, from researching sermons to looking up information to, all the other things that go along with it, website work and emails and text messages from church members. So I am as guilty as anybody. I'm not saying you need to fix your phone problem. I'm talking to myself first, and if it happens to apply to you, I want you to take a message from it. But understand that though some screen usage is good, not all screen usage is bad. Sometimes being distracted is a healthy thing because you need to disengage your mind from a stressful situation. That's good. We just need to make sure we're doing it properly. We need to make sure that we're doing it the right way. Basically, I want us to take a moment and say, how am I living my life right now? How invested am I in the things that really matter right now? Am I connected to the people around me, or am I more interested in something else that is happening elsewhere and I'm choosing to watch it virtually? Am I wasting my life away on frivolous things? That is ultimately the question I'm trying to ask myself, and I want you to ask yourself. Moses said, Lord, teach us to number our days properly so we can gain a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days properly. The idea is realize life is short. Realize every day is a gift, and don't waste it away. It was my parents who taught me years ago, never use the phrase, I'm just killing time. You can't kill time without injuring eternity, according to Henry David Thoreau. The reason we don't want to kill time is you never get it back. If you waste money, you can earn it back. If you get out of shape, you can get back in shape. If you invest in something and it doesn't work out well, you can invest in something else. But time, once it's gone, never comes back, ever, ever. And so don't waste this precious resource, this precious gift from God. Choose to invest your life in the things that truly matter. That's really the heart of the story Charles Dickens wrote, A Christmas Carol. He wrote this kind of as a social commentary dealing with the struggles of the working class people and the struggles of the poor in his world. Child labor was especially an issue. And so he was helping confront these issues by telling a story through the lens of Christmas. And he hoped to bring about transformation and change, that the people in the world, whether wealthy or otherwise, would see the people around them and care enough to do something about it. And he was looking for generosity that would inspire change, and boy, did it ever. Much of our modern Christian celebrations and our Christmas celebrations are actually tied back to that Christmas carol written by Charles Dickens. A lot of the idea of even some of the decorations, the excessive singing and caroling that used to take place, the idea of giving to needy causes and people, a lot of that is tied right back to that story. If you've never read it or watched it, it's about a stingy old man who doesn't have any time for Christmas or the people around him in need. His name is Ebenezer Scrooge. And through the series of events, he's visited by ghosts, his former business partner, and then the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future. And through the series of it all, he realizes he's missed out on what's most important. In his chase for business success and money, he has completely ignored his partner as he was dying. He ignored the love of his life and missed out on having a family. And now he's going to eventually die a lonely, cold death, and he won't be missed by anyone. And it's when he wakes up from that reality that he says, I've got to change. And boy, does he ever. He has an instantaneous change on Christmas morning. He begins to give generously. He goes to visit family he had never seen before. And in the most moving line of the whole play, it happens specifically in the 1984 edition of A Christmas Carol, Scrooge walks between his nephew and his wife whom he'd never met before because he never took the time to meet him. And he says, God, forgive me for the time I've wasted. You see, you don't need a screen to waste time. You don't need technology to waste time. It was happening in the 1800s and the 1700s and the 1600s and all the way back to the very beginning of time. How much time have all of us wasted collectively? Enough that if we put it together, the world could be changed in the most amazing type of way. So I need to be like Ebenezer Scrooge. I need to say, God, forgive me for the time I've wasted, and start investing in the most meaningful way possible, and maybe you do as well. How can we do that? Well, we're going to do it first of all by opening our eyes so we can see. We need to open our eyes and see. We're going to be in Luke chapter 2 as we get started. No surprise there if you know where the Christmas story is located. We're also going to be in Matthew chapter 2. But Luke 2 is going to be the bulk of our time together. So if you want to go ahead and get over there, we're going to begin reading the story that you probably know or have heard any number of times. And we're going to see the message of Christmas in the lens of trying to be people who are present to what God is doing, present to understanding what God expects of us today. Luke chapter 2, picking it up in verse 1. In those days, Caesar Augustus issued a decree that a census should be taken of the entire Roman world. This was the first census that took place while Quirinius was governor of Syria. Just as a footnote, Luke is a historian, and the reason he adds that detail is so you can fact check him. And guess what? They fact checked him and they found out, there was a census taken while Quirinius was governor of Syria. That has been verified as true. Those little details stand out when you look at it through that lens. All right, let's keep moving. And everyone went to their own town to register. So Joseph also went up from the town of Nazareth in Galilee to Judea, to Bethlehem, the town of David, because he belonged to the house and line of David. He went there to register with Mary, who was pledged to be married to him and was expecting a child. While they were there, the time came for the baby to be born, and she gave birth to her firstborn, a son. She wrapped him in cloths and placed him in a manger because there was no guest room available for them. So the Son of God was born, and no one noticed. No one noticed. People were busy. They were distracted, and they didn't see what was going on, whether it was in a front porch or a stable or a cave nearby. There was no parade or celebration that should announce the arrival of a king. Instead, God's Son was born in obscurity. But there were a few people that were able to observe it. Let's go over to Matthew chapter 2 real quick. We're just going to read the first couple of verses here. It says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, where is the one who's been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him. These men traveled, we estimate, around 800 miles to come find the Messiah. But they had been looking for him for over 500 years, since the time of the prophet Daniel. At the institution of the Magi, created by King Nebuchadnezzar, this royal group of people who would understand the times and the seasons, some would receive prophecies from God. There was a belief that there was going to be a king of God's line rising up in Israel. And eventually that happened. The Magi show up, and that's the fulfillment of this prophecy. But they had been looking very intently for 500 years for this moment to happen. And this is so important for us. We need to be looking intently at what God is doing, whether it's in our relationships with one another, whether it's in what God is doing in our work, whether what God is doing in our neighborhood, our community, opportunities to share the good news. We got to have our eyes open so we can see it. And you can't have your eyes open to the opportunities around you if you're always looking down. We need to be present. We need to be engaged. We need to see what's going on. We got to start loving people where they are, not waiting for them to get to the right place. So see people where they are and see their need for God, see their need for Jesus. But perhaps we need to be reminded of our own need for Jesus so we can love people better. Because I'm going to tell you right now, it's really hard to love people and to see their needs when you're always scrolling, always judging, always somewhere else. Let's keep rolling along here, though. The second thing we need to do is open our ears and listen. So there were some other people that are involved in the story. Let's go to Luke chapter 2 again, picking it up in verse 12. It said, "This will be a sign to you. You will find a baby wrapped in cloths lying in a manger." So we have the shepherds here. They're hearing the good news. Suddenly a great company of the heavenly hosts appeared with the angel, praising God and saying, "Glory to God in the highest heaven, and on earth peace to those on whom his favor rests." When the angels had left him and gone into heaven, the shepherds said to one another, "Let's go to Bethlehem and see this thing that has happened, which the Lord has told us about." So they hurried off and found Mary and Joseph and the baby who was lying in the manger. Now these shepherds were pretty amazing guys. They heard and they listened. They just simply obeyed. Okay, let's go do this thing. Let's go see what happened. And so it's important for us to choose to really listen to what's going on around us. Really catch what's going on. Be engaged. It's so important, and this is a struggle that I've had off and on in my life. I try to be very intentional. If you're talking to me and I'm looking at my phone, stop. Wait till I put the phone down, till I look up, because I cannot divert my attention two ways. Somebody's going to get shortchanged, and it's usually the person in person. So don't do that. Wait. This happens all the time, especially with the kids walking in the kitchen. I might be responding to a message or just looking something up, wasting time, which I shouldn't do. And I'm going through it, and they just start talking. I'm like, wait, I heard nothing. Let me finish this. Okay, now tell me what you want to tell me, because I want to be engaged with the moment. But this really came true to me several years ago. Miss had called me, and I was in the office working, and she said, "Hey, you won't believe what just happened." Took the kids to McDonald's, and something about her order was wrong. I didn't catch it, but I almost always know what happens. They put cheese on her burger. She doesn't do cheese, and so I knew what had happened. She goes, "What do you think of that?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's terrible. They put cheese on it." She goes, "No, they didn't." So I'm trying to replay the bits and pieces that I heard. I knew there was an order wrong, and it was hers, and it was something with her hamburger, and I knew nothing else. I said, "Okay, try again. What happened?" And it turns out they forgot to put the burger on the burger. She got 2 pieces of bread with ketchup. I mean, Milo would eat that, but the rest of us not so much. Like, what in the world? Like, how do you mess that up? But really the bigger question was, how did you not hear that? It's because I was looking at something else. I was in the middle of something, and I just didn't take time to disengage to hear a 2-minute conversation. So we need to be more intentional about listening. We need to make sure that we open our ears and listen. I mean, imagine the shepherds with me for just a moment. The shepherds are in the field. They hear the angels. Wow, that was amazing. Yeah, that was bright lights. There were giant wings. They were singing. All right, we should go. Go where? Well, to the town. Which town? I don't know. I don't remember. Why are we going to town? Well, there's something we're supposed to see. What was it? I don't know. Were we supposed to see some cloth, right? A cloth? Are we supposed to go to Hobby Lobby? Like, I don't know what we're supposed to do here. Like, all of a sudden, they missed the entire message because they were distracted. Like, that wouldn't make a very good Bible story. But boy, would that describe us today. The number of people who are completely disengaged from what's going on. I had read a report not long ago that the rest of the world is pretty much engaged in Christmas like we do, very commercialized in the trees and the presents, and it's become quite a worldwide phenomenon. And in Japan, they were going around, because it's not a very Christian culture, has no real historical Christian roots. They were interviewing people on the street. What's the meaning of Christmas? And they got all kinds of answers. And like one of the more common ones was like, is that the day Jesus died? And we hear that and we kind of laugh, like that's crazy. You're mixing up Easter or Resurrection Sunday with or Good Friday with Christmas, like unbelievable. But that just shows you how distracted people are. They're not really listening to what it's all about. I think there's probably a lot of people who could sing a lot of the Christmas carols involving the Christmas story, the real story, and have absolutely no idea what it's really all about. It's pretty amazing. We need to choose to open our ears and listen to those around us. And only after we open our eyes and open our ears can we open our mouth and talk. After you listen, there is an opportunity to respond. Let's go back to these shepherds for just a moment, picking it up in verse 17. When they had seen him, they spread the word concerning what had been told them about this child. And all who heard it were amazed and at what the shepherds said to them. But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart. The shepherds returned, glorifying and praising God for all the things they had seen and heard, which were just as they had been told. The shepherds shared and saw what God had done in the lives of his people. There are millions of people saying a million things at the same time. That's the phenomenon of social media, is everybody has a chance to have a platform to say something. But not too many people choose to listen to those around. We need to choose to listen so we can respond accordingly. We need to testify to what God has done in our lives. We need to share the good news of Christmas every single day. Did you notice how the shepherds respond? It said they were amazed, and then they testified to the things they had seen and heard. And then the people were amazed at what the shepherds said. How different our world could be if we choose to listen, choose to engage the world around us, and testify to the good things God is doing. The shepherds are making an impact 2,000 years later. Do you want to make an impact 2,000 years after your life? Then choose to open your mouth and talk about the things that really, really matter. Fourth thing, we need to open our hearts and love. We need to take time to open our hearts and love. And this is a big one here. We need to take time to care about the people around us, because right now we live in a world where people don't. And why don't they? Well, I think I can explain it in a couple of stories. I'll tell you the first one. It's about a boy named Sammy. Sammy was a special needs boy. When he was born, he was going to be 4 or 5 years behind all the other kids. And Christmas Eve approached, and they were going to have Christmas Eve service at their church one year. Sammy was 15, but really mental capacity more like 10, maybe 11. And he always attended all the Sunday school classes. He always went to school with his friends, but, he was always treated as the different kid. They picked on him a little bit more, but he was just smiling and happy. He just went along with it. He just accepted it for what it was. But on Christmas Eve, it was special at his church, because what would happen is there would be a present put under the tree for every child in the church. And they would see the big pile of presents, and it wasn't until at the end of service that they would all be called forward to receive a gift, and it was a big deal. Well, they all would be looking at the presents before church began, and Sammy went up there, and he saw that the biggest box under the tree had his name on it. And that was so exciting. He couldn't believe it. Wow, what a great treat for Sammy. So he had a hard time sitting through that hour-long service, and I don't blame him. I would have too. But he finally got through the service, and at the end, the preacher called all the kids forward, and he's handing out the presents, and he gets to that big box. He said, "Well, who's this one for?" And Sammy goes, "It's for me." And he was so excited, and the preacher said, "Yeah, it sure is, Sammy." And they gave him the box, and he rips open the paper and opens it and finds it's empty. One of the other kids had taken a large box and wrapped it and put his name on it to play a trick on Sammy. And you can imagine the letdown as he opened that box, expecting something amazing. And in fact, he found nothing. And here's the point. People every day are going through the exact same turmoil of Sammy. They're opening up the box expecting great things, and they're left so disappointed. They think, if I just scroll for one more minute, I'm going to see something that's going to make my day. If I watch one more video, if I attend one more event, if I buy one more treasure from the store, if I can mark off one more place that I have visited on the map, if I can have one more moment doing this or going there or experiencing that pleasure, then yes, I will have made it. And that box is empty every single time. The story of Sammy is not unique to him. It's unique. It's part of every human being who's ever lived. The truth is, the world will always dress up something real pretty. It's going to look great, but it's always going to leave you empty. It's going to leave you wanting more. And so this Christmas, if you want to really get meaning and value out of life, then you got to start chasing the right things. There's a second story, and as the worship team joins me, I'm going to read it for you. It's on my phone. How about that? But it is. I screenshot it for you, so I'm going to read it for you. It's about Scotty Scheffler. Scottie Scheffler is the greatest golfer in the world today, and that's not hyperbole, it's just true. He's the best golfer in the world, just won the Open over in Europe, and just absolutely winning everything he plays. And every kid who's ever watched golf or played golf, when I was growing up, everybody wanted to be Tiger Woods. And, of course, we saw how that worked out. But then now kids who are playing golf want to be Scottie Scheffler. Can't blame them one bit for it at all. But he was interviewed right before the major that just took place, that he won, and he won it easily. And here's what he said during this interview. He said, "It feels like you work your whole life to celebrate winning a tournament for like a few minutes. It only lasts a few minutes, that kind of euphoric feeling. I literally worked my entire life to become good at golf and have an opportunity to win that tournament. You win it. You celebrate. You hug your family. My sister's there. It's such an amazing moment. And then it's like, okay, what are we going to eat for dinner? Because life goes on. Is it great to be able to win tournaments and to accomplish things that I have in the game of golf? Yeah. It brings tears to my eyes just to think about it because I've literally worked my entire life to be good at this sport. To get to live out your dreams is very special. But at the end of the day, I'm not out here to inspire the next generation of golfers. I'm not out here to inspire someone to be the best player in the world because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's not fulfilling from a sense of the deepest places of your heart. There's a lot of people that make it what they thought it was going to be fulfilling for them. And you get there, you get to number one in the world, and they're like, what's the point? I really do believe that because what's the point? I don't know what his net worth is. If I had to guess, he's probably getting close to that $100 million mark with sponsorships and tournament wins, if not more. He's going to have a name like Tiger Woods maybe by the time it's all said and done. And he's still trying to figure out what's the point. The article didn't really elaborate too much more as to him finding the point. But Christmas is the message that we have found it. We've discovered real life and meaning, and it's living life with God who chooses to be present with us. That's the story of Emmanuel. That's the message of Christmas, whether it's in December or in July. I hope you'll take that message seriously today, and I hope as we leave here today, you will choose to be present. Make a decision to be present with the one who showed up for each and every one of us. If you have a decision to make, you meet me down front as we stand and as we sing.